Huh? Oh, g'day. Maybe I'm live now. I don't know what's going on here. I just, it's not even me. It's technology doing its own thing. Let me just check here. I have no idea what happened with this. It was like half an hour. It kept saying, it even showed I was live on here, but oh no, I wasn't really. An hour. It kept saying, it even okay. Showed I was. Well, I'm here now, but who knows what the heck that was about. I swear. I don't have a clue. Now I have to think about the topic. Now I have to get my mind back on what I was going to do. I've never seen technology screw up like that, but hey, there's always something new every day. Oh, okay, that is counting up. Like, what do you know? It's actually working now. Whoa. So, anyway, yeah, let's begin. First thing I wanted to say before I even get to the topic was now I have to get the other phone. They all go to sleep every 2 seconds. Okay. So, I just wanted to say this. A big thank you to viewers, subscribers, people interested. Because this month, I think I set an all time record on this channel. Right now, and the month isn't up yet, 51,000 point 251, I don't know how, 51,000 views. And it's not the whole month yet. With a whopping for my channel, 548,000 some odd watch time hours. Just hey, I don't look at it. They pop up if you go on the phone to your TubeBuddy Studio. So anyway, that was I don't go looking for that stuff, but 51,000 views and the month isn't up is a record for this channel. Whoopee! Do is screw up there. I'm buffering. Oh, I'm coming back. So when I was trying to do this and when I set it up, and when I would hit go live, YouTube said, live streaming isn't available right now. Please try again. Just, nah. I guess they're overloaded. So anyway, hey there, Michelle. and, Owen. Oh, hey. So anyway, I hope this is going to work. I have no idea. The topic is, and it will help me to do this. I don't trust what's going on with this technology right now. Borderlines and non-borderlines. I guess non-borderline. No, everybody's a codependent. Borderline or non-borderline, it's codependency is the one thing in common. That probably doesn't help. But borderlines and non-borderlines do not understand each other, do not get on the same page, really. And there's this fundamental disconnect, and it is incompatible reality. So, there's incompatible relational reality, and there's just, the absolute disconnect is people with BP are coming from one world, and people without BP are coming from an emotionally speaking, you know, different landscapes of how to relate or how people don't know how to relate. So I think this is like an interesting topic because what's at the core of it all. And well, let me just start by saying this again too. I don't care what other YouTubers say. I don't care what people say all day. Here's a truth and a reality for you, okay? Borderline personality has been categorized by American Pseudoscience of Psychiatry, yes, as a quote, mental illness, like everything from the pseudoscience of psychiatry is within the false construct of a mental illness. Let me just say, it's hooey, like the rest of what they say. They can't prove it, they make it up. Who profits from it? I don't. You don't. They do. Just like with their psychiatric medication. Yes. Well, if I get any more messages from this software. So the thing is, what is the forward thinking, not only based on neuroscience, but more moving forward in various disciplines within the profession of mental health. Many clinicians know that borderline personality is a response to adverse childhood experience, and the root of everything is trauma. So it's a response to trauma, a trauma response, and that that means even in the 25% with perceived abandonment, which feels really real to them. So it is a trauma response. And for people that keep wanting to say, and there are millions out there, I'm sure, and professionals, they, because no matter what gets pioneered or how we try to move forward, it's not just me, but I try to move forward with the times, and yeah, considering older information and considering newer information, and then amalgamating them in a way that I think makes common sense. Remember, common sense isn't a part of this. So many people who don't know what they're talking about out there are going to keep saying it's a mental illness, mental illness. People with BPD are going to keep saying I'm a BPD sufferer. Not all, but some. I don't know who that helps, right? But the bottom line is, Google it, do the research, look at journal articles coming out. I mean, it is well established that at the root, or at least a major root of core reason for borderline personality, so called, is trauma. Early childhood freaking trauma. So the other thing I want to say here, people think I'm always anti-BPD. No, I'm not. Because here's the other thing I really want to say here before getting into this topic. The idea that people with BPD get treatment and can never get better, not true. Everybody's different. Everybody's going to have their own trajectory. Everybody's either going to, with BPD, is either going to get really engaged in treatment or not, or half and half. GBT is a great place to start, not a recovery modality. The thing is, people can recover and people are recovering from BPD. Probably not the majority, right? So people that say out there, oh, like sort of like once an addict, always an addict. I don't know. I've never been an addict, so I don't want to say. But I can tell you, once a borderline, so to speak, whatever the hell that means anymore, not always a borderline and forever a borderline. So there's a lot of people out there who don't know what they're talking about, and it's really clear. So all they've got to tell you about is the latest person they listen to on YouTube, or somebody else they're copying, or something they read online, maybe on Quora. Not that there aren't a few really. There's a couple of professionals I follow over there that are worth it. The rest of the time, yeah. And those other sites. So, we can't even establish any narrative about that borderline person. It's a trauma response known as BPD. Needs to get unknown as that in a freaking hurry, in my humble opinion. Not helping anybody, but so people with, quote, BPD, unquote, this trauma response from the trauma of early childhood, the arrested emotional development that happens means they lose themselves. When they lose themselves and they continue to grow and they continue to get a year older every year and they get intellectually smarter and they might grow a little bit emotionally, but they're not getting in any way, shape, or form through the early stages of childhood development, then where they're coming from emotionally may as well be another planet. That's nothing against people with BPD, but for people to get reasonably through in a healthy fashion early childhood development, then that's a whole different other emotional landscape, even for people who have codependency. So this idea that somebody who hasn't got the trauma response, the emotional arrested development, and the lost self can somehow understand the person that does, based on what, right? And then people who have that, quote, we have to use the language BPD, um, they don't understand what everybody else understands about the social contract of communication, of relational reality, because so often people with BPD are relating from a place. They might be in the here now and again, and then they get triggered. And it doesn't always have to be a horribly big trigger or a huge big reaction to a trigger, but any kind of trigger. And for people untreated or who may have these issues and the diagnosis, not the most important thing, but knowing what's happening for someone or knowing what's happened to them is And so all the relational, they're in a different relational reality. And the relational reality of those with BPD, certainly undiagnosed or diagnosed and untreated, or even like treated but not significantly enough treated, whatever that means, right? It's hard to measure. They are not going to be coming from a place of self. They're going to be, quote, relating, unquote, through, it's an object relations. And I'm going to have some other videos coming on other ways to explain it, I guess, but I don't think it matters. I think object relations is the best way. So people with BPD are in this relational bubble of lack of self, no self-reference, no other reference, merging with people and seeking identity from people and not knowing that consciously, and then getting triggered so often back to the repetition compulsion cycles of what traumatized them in childhood, again, not consciously. Then what they might be aware of is a lot of pain, a lot of anxiety. They might feel what's known as the anxiety of the death instinct. But whatever they feel, it's big, it's huge, it's terrifying often, it's scary, and then they're going to turn around in a heartbeat and throw it all at you, project it all out onto you, because they don't know that it's really coming from their past and inside of them. And so with this reality that is a alternate reality of relational, I don't know, space that people with BPD are in through no fault of their own, but now they have to take personal responsibility. They're not understanding what other people are going through. They don't understand often the impact of their actions, words, decisions, abuse, etc. onto others at all. Other people are like, what's going on here? And you're getting abused and you're getting hurt, but you didn't do whatever they're screaming at you about. So how are people who've never had borderline personality, I have to use this stupid language, right? Supposed to understand it all. What's really happening for the person with BPD when all this stuff goes off in them that's from the past. Dissociative can include, well, of course, emotional dysregulation and sometimes age regression. Not always to 2 or a crying baby, by the way. But so how could it be possible that there could be understanding in the middle? Because it's rarely ever forged, and the only way it can be forged is when the person with BPD gets healthier, when they go through significant treatment, when the person who's the quote non-borderline unquote does something about their codependency and starts to look at things through their own reality, through their own lens, in that part of a the other side of the disconnect, right? So what happens and what traumatizes people, so people with BPD are already traumatized, now they're going to traumatize you, and the next, most of them, or until unless enough treatment and all that. And then the next thing is, so you have codependency and you want to understand. Well, for most people with codependency, why you want to understand so badly, this is in your unconscious, is because there's something you need to repair, a woundedness from in your inner child. For some it's trauma, for some it's just adverse experience. It's not necessarily horrible, but it affected you. And so we see here in the meaning of the codependency, right? So non-borderlines don't have BPD and borderlines have BPD, for lack of anything better to call it right now. But in the middle of that codependency, we see this connecting, this merging, because in different ways, each on the side of the absolute disconnect with incompatible relational reality have expectations that are not going to get met. And then everybody fights to get them met. And then how is love even on the table when everybody's fighting to get some stuff met? In the middle of abject impossibility. So there's no way that people with BPD understand what you're going through, unless they get to the point of almost recovered, where then it's different. But there's no way they're going to understand what you're going through. And how on earth can you try to understand what they're going through? And you see what they're going through or what they're doing, or oh poor them, or you feel so guilty for them and all this kind. I can't go no contact because I'm going to feel guilty. What if he or she does, and like this and then. But then that's those are your issues, right? But no person alive today, no codependent in the imperfect condition of humanity can do anything near enough to help a person with borderline personality realize your reality. And they can't do anything to get you to understand theirs, because even if you think you got it, boom, something else is going to happen. And not only that, but you give and you give and you give, and they can't receive and they can't receive and they can't receive, but they demand and they demand and they demand and they want and they want and they need, but they can't accept what you're given. They repel, they defend, they don't trust. There's no self in there. So this is a bridge that got, you know, smashed up in the middle. So people with BPD trying to relate, walk across the bridge to a person with BPD, walk across the bridge to a person with who's non-borderline, and you're trying to meet in the middle, but there's this great big gap because like the bridge doesn't really close, or the bridge has a missing piece. So these gaps can't be bridged through understanding. People with BPD out there online, not all of them, but a lot of them, they hate everything I say. I got this lovely, cute email today. I don't know who it was. Maybe I know, maybe I don't know. But in all the years I've been online, I've never had an email like this. I'm not going to say I've never had some emails that are. But this one was just funny. Sad, but funny. But so here I am, and I'm trying to talk about this, and I'm not trying to beat up on people with BPD, and I understand it's a trauma response, and I believe there's recovery, and I think it's pseudoscience of psychiatry, and psychiatric meds don't help, and they're all bad, and I'm saying all this stuff for people with BPD more than anybody else. And anyway, so from this email address called no@gmail.com, clever, isn't it? Comes this email, no, no, no. Well, I'll just say it, no, 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 fuck you. Borderline BPDs do not abuse. What is that? What is that? Well, you know what I experienced that as, besides funny and tragic at the same time? It's like, I just wrote back, lovely, exclamation mark. You just sent an abusive email. Yes, yes, yes. Right? So some people out there with BPD, wherever, whatever, they're going to continue to say what like that person said, and other people have said more comments to the channel, and I don't engage them. They're going to continue to say that. Why? Because they really don't understand this, what I'm talking about here. But non-borderlines, people with codependency on the other side, you understand, right? But no, they don't understand. So, I mean, I experience this a lot on this channel. Getting abused by lots with BPD, not all, because they think I have to be so wrong. Even though I'm not one of those vilifying type YouTubers, of which there are many out there. So this bridge can't be joined together until and unless people with BPD get significant treatment. And this idea that people who are in relationships with people with BPD, excuse me, or you might be on and off or whatever's going on, this idea that you're going to be able, just get them to therapy. That's the answer. Well, of course it'd be nice if they go. That would be the answer. But long term, over years. And I was speaking to clients recently too. It's like, and so some people, more people are going to therapy, but recently clients have told me that they've had, they're in that sort of, I think I've been ghosted, but I'm not sure yet place. And they're saying, well, but the person with BPD that they're talking about, has just done an 8-week DBT course or a 16-week DBT course. Maybe they did a 6-month DBT course. Maybe they even were in a year, but maybe they quit. Maybe they missed half of the. Maybe they never really engaged it. And DBT is only the beginning, a very good beginning. But again, I'm quoting Dr. John Gunderson. This isn't coming from me. Recovery from borderline personality disorder. That means engaged in treatment and going to go and committed to it 8 to 16 years. And I believe that Dr. John Gunderson says this about the modality that he and Dr. Frank Yeomans pioneered, which is transference focused psychotherapy. I'm not sure they're saying that about other therapies, but anyway. So it is, like I've said in other videos, it's impossibility happening. Now this is buffering again. I know, YouTube is like overloaded or something. So I was just going to say, here we have an example of what happens in so many people's lives at any given moment, and the non-borderline has no idea why the borderline is all upset, suddenly emotionally dysregulated, for probably good reasons in their triggered reality. But this is when people with BPD leave the here and now reality that's shared. As you can see, the guy in the video is like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what to do. You know, it's like, and that's the reality of it. It's like there's one reality that just shifted out of the shared reality, and that's the person with BPD. So we'll just say this woman yelling and waving her arms around is the borderline in this example. And there's a guy going like, what? Like, you know, I don't even, what's going on here? So that's not an understood kind of shared reality once they are out of reality. You know, or do you ever get to the point where you're trying to understand, you might still be fighting for the relationship? Hoovers, reverse Hoovers, you're trying to get back together again. But this is how you'd walk down the beach right about now. If you had a beach to walk on, it's like, not really together, because that man, and I'm not always saying it's one, but that man is like, I don't know what's up with her, but I know what's going on in my life, but I know what she says to me doesn't make any sense. And she's thinking, what's wrong with this guy? He doesn't understand me. He doesn't need to hear me. He needs to validate me. Why doesn't he get it? And you know, really, for people with codependence and the wounded inner child, it is so much about childhood, and so is it for people with BPD, and not in the same way. And here's what's going on, relationally speaking, between these incompatible relational realities: just deception, self-deception. I don't think too many people are trying to be deceptive with BPD on purpose. Some might be, but it's so stigmatized. But the reality simply is they rarely live in the here and now emotionally or in interpersonal relationships. So it's a big deception of what everybody wants to think, that it is this bridge of reality brought to get two realities brought together. No, it's not. And it's not even that in the idealization phase. So, you know, I don't know. I'll see what people are saying, but it's like, I wonder if people have things to say about all the reasons why you think that maybe what I'm talking about couldn't possibly be true. Because it's not really that hopeless or definitive, is it? And I'd say, yeah, unfortunately, it pretty much really is. Because unless and until people, I can't get this to pop out now. What else is new? Unless and until people get really substantial treatment, it's not going to be fast enough, soon enough to save relationships. So there's denial on both sides of this, you know, bridge, or nobody can meet in the middle. But I just wonder how many people have experienced this and maybe still don't want to admit this to themselves, right? Um, Michael, yeah, just call me AJ. That's fine. Um, I'm not going to get into the Myers-Briggs stuff. It really has nothing to do with BPD. It's not important as far as somebody having BPD goes. Yeah, it's finally working, CB. How about that? Because it wasn't me. I didn't screw anything up. It's just YouTube, whether it wanted to work or not. And what would you prefer to name BPD instead, AJ? I don't want to rename it. It's been renamed 5 times over now. I think we need to look at it as more and more clinicians are. And of course, within never mind psychiatry, they should just go away. But within all the disciplines across mental health, there are always people who are fighting with theories, people that pioneer theories or adhere to different modalities of treatment or theories of cause and effect or whatever the case. There's always professionals fighting about it. Oh no, borderline personalities or severe mental illness. No. But now today, so many more realizing no, it's a response to early childhood trauma. So is narcissistic personality disorder. So you see that the solution isn't in the name. The problem is in the name. The stigma is in the name. But the problem and the stigma originate with American pseudoscience of psychiatry pathologizing human traits that they call BPD traits. They're human traits. Huh? Drives me crazy. Anyway, not about a name change. It's about a whole paradigm understanding shifting change. And the reality that codependents need to realize these relationships are not going to work out for you. And then you have to go and do the healing and recovery journey that would benefit you so you can get on with your life. And that might sound cold, but I'm just here to state the facts. And the facts are simply that, with rare exceptions, well, and the person would have to have significant treatment to be a rare exception. These relationships do not work out. So people who are still trying to make them work out, still in denial, even though you might know more up here, well, then you really have to ask yourself, why do you keep believing or having the same expectations and believing that repeating the same patterns with somebody with BPD, is going to yield you a different result? Because believing that the same actions are going to yield a different result, somebody said in a different way, some like famous quote person, said is the definition of insanity. I'm not calling anybody insane. I'm just saying. Doing okay, Wills. Hope you're doing okay too. Well, fighting it. Fighting it. If you're trying to fight for a relationship with somebody with BPD, no, you're in the wrong. You're leaving your reality and you're trying to jump into theirs. Um, Anything that you have to fight for and that is exhausting, it's not love, and it's not worth it. It's just simply not worth it. Hi there, Nicole. Michelle, you'd be proud of me, AJ. I finally decided to block my BPDX since last Thursday. I needed peace of mind, and it was affecting my mental health. Well, good for you. Step 1 done. Step 2, hold that position. And now, and the third thing to be aware of, your next step is, and realize how much more the lens of your understanding is going to open wider because you have that space and you have peace of mind and you might have some more peace in general for a little while, but it can be painful at the same time. Sizzle Pop, what if you do have BPD and you understand? Well, I mean, people are in various different places, right? But I would ask you, if you have BP and you understand, what exactly do you understand? And how much treatment have you had? And how are your relationships going? So I'm not saying everything I say, by the way, it's not global to every person ever diagnosed with BPD in the world at all. But if they don't get treatment, then it's a pretty wide fitting globalized statement. Whoops. Um So if you have BP and you understand, you must have had significant treatment and you should be working your way out of BPD because it is not a life sentence. If people get the treatment, that will change that. healed that. Just see. Oh, hey there. Yes. Um, yeah, Wheels, it's true. I know the person that sent me the email. Yeah, like you said, quote, to prove people with BPD don't abuse, I'll send an abusive email. I know. How's that for logic? They lack logic because they go on. They magical thinking and oh they feel so much and of course they feel so much, but it's all mixed up with emotional dysregulation and triggers from the past, and then I didn't finish what I should have said earlier. Object relations is all about the reality of how people with BPD with the arrested emotional development, the loss of self. This is true of narcissists too, but I'm not going to mix and match right now. That law, and I'm not saying they're exactly the same, but that lost self, um, what that means is, and what was I going to say? Oh, geez, I forgot it earlier. I'm forgetting it again now. Um, they don't, like I said before, so with that, they don't know who they are. So unless they change that through a lot of therapy, they're not really going to understand how they're relating or impacting others. There was more I wanted to say. Oh yes, all they're relating in terms of object relations, they're relating to object other parent representation when they're trying to relate to even favorite person, which I think is the silliest thing I've ever heard in my life. I still believe that. Sorry. Or when they're trying to relate to the person closest to them, be it a parent or be it a significant other or a sibling, whomever it may be, they are just going to relate to that person like, well, if they're relating to a parent who is the parent, but if they're in the 25%, well, that's a whole other story. But relating to significant others and everyone else in their life in general and people in the world in general as mommy or daddy, wounding parent. That's what object relations is all about, was well studied decades ago. Hey there, Anthony. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for your kind words. Hey, Joe. Thank you. Yes, the beach scene. You can relate to that, can you? Um, I don't live near a beach, but yeah, who'd want to be on a beach in that situation where, you know, two people might really care about each other, whatever the health of the state or whatever that means, but two, relational different realities. Michael, is it common for a person diagnosed with borderline personality and later diagnosed bipolar? Oh man, I don't know. There's a hot topic. It's been a hot topic for a long time. By the way, I did find in my archives, I don't know why it got privated, it's public again, but I have one out there on the differences between BPD and bipolar. I have to look into this more because I get a lot of questions. But, Michael, I would say it's common today that more people are getting diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and then later bipolar, or maybe bipolar and then later borderline personality. I think they're considering them somewhat differential, in other words, comorbid these days, but I don't know. I don't know what psychiatry is doing with that because could they both exist in the same person? I guess. I don't know. But this idea of all these mistakes being made, I'm not even a fan of psychiatry, and I don't believe. I know they miss things. I know some of them are horrible, some of them are better, but I don't believe. Yeah, it's common, but what does that mean? Because I don't think it's well understood. I think it could be different psychiatrists with different opinions. If somebody's seen a lot of different psychiatrists, it could be some disagreement. Maybe each is picking up different things. I don't know. So I just yeah, it's not well understood to a lot of people today how this is happening, and to people that have been diagnosed with one or the other, and then reaffirmed with one and not the other, and maybe they have them both. I just don't know. Rob, hi AJ. My ex used to end our dates over something so silly, and then when I left and said I'm going home, she's calling me 5 minutes later saying, you, to come back. Is this common? Yeah. Well, she would get triggered by something, and then she would wanna, how'd you put that? Yeah, she'd wanna end a date. That's kind of like a, well, I should be careful of the words I use, but that's like a not, it's a trigger, but not the biggest of triggers, right? And then, so you leave, and then or you try to go along with what she asks you to do, and then, 5 minutes later she feels abandoned, so she wants you to come back. And that could happen, 20 times in an hour, or 3 hours, or 4 hours, because it's splitting, right? And whatever's causing the split, whatever the trigger is, you see, it's not always like it's going to be this huge, big seminal moment, like sometimes often it is. So yeah, that's pretty common. And remember, without a self, people with BPD really, from moment to moment, day to day, hour to hour, they don't know what they're going to feel like. They don't know what they're going to want. They don't know what they want to do. So that could have been part of it. She might have got anxious and decided, oh, I can't do this. So, like, okay, forget it. I want to end this date. Or, chose something that you did that was silly or that you didn't even do, but blamed that and then said, no, come back here 5 minutes later, because maybe she thought, well, maybe the anxiety's passing, right? Which would have all to do with that difficulty of even being close, difficulty of committing to things, difficulty of, what am I going to do if I feel like this while I'm doing that? So it's really common. Did I miss a comment up there? Just a second. I mean, I missed lots, but somebody seems to be talking to somebody that I didn't see. No, I don't have an imaginary friend. Okay, I don't know what's going on with that. Sorry, I don't know. Oh, maybe when you said Ray, you meant Rav. Okay, possibly. Hi there, Daniel. Long time no see. Just see the denial that is all. Wait a minute. The denial is that although she's a high functioning woman with BPD traits, there's that word again. What does that even mean? Traits. I question if I'm wrong how she can show friends and her employer of 15 years how she can, oh, Snow, friends and her employer of 15 years, yet act like a child romantically. Well, sounds like maybe higher functioning, yes. More developed protection, stronger defense mechanisms, what really higher functioning is about in BPD. And so she manages, to stay protected enough in other situations, but then bring it into interpersonal relating, and the defenses aren't as reliable. They're all maladaptive by the time people get to adulthood anyway. So it sounds like she has more than BPD traits, by the way, by what you're saying. The BPD traits are human traits, just more frequently and intensely experienced. I mean, isn't that a wonderful thing to delineate and then label people and continue to forward the worst stigma in the world, like the pseudoscience of psychiatry's pathologizing of this trauma response in people? They do. That's what they do. Well, thank you for that, Chang Bin Boom. I mean, Chu, I got it all wrong. Bang, boom, boom. Yes, sorry. Joe, most lonely feeling in the world on that beach in devaluation. Now I can understand that. And I'm sorry to hear that you know that. Um, Michelle seems to find that funny. That's interesting. Is that a defense or a denial? I don't know. Daniel, how are you, AJ? Doing fine, thank you. Just not having a good time with technology. What else is new? Um, been a while, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what was going on with that, Daniel, at all. Owen, I just got called into work, so I have to sign out. Oh, sure, well, that's good. Work is good. Um, oh, you're welcome. And you can always watch streams whenever you have the time, right? Take care. Dub, first dial in. Thanks for being so open, AJ, and sharing your insights and knowledge. Is okay. Is constant threatening of divorce separation common with people with BPD? Yes, and it's also getting more common with people that are married to people with BPD. They don't usually threaten it, but they're like, hey, I don't know if I can take any more of this, etc. But yeah, because it's at the base of all of these things, like what Rav said on a date, or like when you're out. And what you're saying is what they're always threatening. It goes along with whether they're it's the approach avoidance conflict. It's like they want and they need to be loved and close, but they can't tolerate it, and so then they pull back, they push away, or I'm gonna divorce you, I don't, and then like they fear of abandonment, and then no, how you said you might go next day. You know how you said yesterday you want to divorce me? What's going on? I don't know. I didn't say that. What are you talking about? I don't want a divorce. Yeah, it's disorganized attachment that really is an attachment. They don't know who they are without therapy and significant therapy. So how can they possibly know how they feel? And then remember that with triggers and emotional dysregulation, but they're past. This is the alternate relational reality. People with BPD until unless significant treatment are living in this kind of like they're here sometimes, and then the portal opens up, and their past comes flying into the here and now, and they can't tell the difference, and then they blame you for what happened to them years ago, because it's not that much in their conscious mind what they're feeling. They just know what they feel is either really anxiety producing, really terrifying, really painful, and or gives them a lot of anxiety. So I'm gonna dump that right on over to you. And you're like, what? Sun's shining beautiful. We were walking on the beach, and what's happening now? See, because it makes lots of sense. The person with BPD doesn't understand, but yeah, it makes sense to their experience, their trauma, but it does not make sense in the here and now at all. That makes sense to them in the here and now, but they repetition compulsions. They can't help with it. They can't change what they're doing without going to therapy. And so for loved ones or people around them, it's like, huh? What happened? Say what? And they'll always pick something, like, well, you loaded the dishwasher wrong. How do you expect me to be able to concentrate? You did this. I can't stand that. I don't think I love you anymore because you farted. Whatever it is. But it's what's happening inside of them that they're not aware of. So you end up with, I'm going to keep saying it this way, the huge disconnect. And the why it's impossible is because people with BPD are in one relational reality more often than they ever join you in the shared, which the rest of the world would agree, shared relational reality. What everybody else in the world who doesn't have BPD or NPD or ASPD, etc., agrees is the kind of contract of relating in an interpersonal relationship. And where was I here? Um, yep. Sorry, I lost my place. Can you imagine if this channel was really busy? I would never find my place. Um, well, the idea of high functioning with BPD, right? It's like some people are more high functioning than others, but just like between the acting out or externalizing borderline and the quiet borderline, there are differences, but at the core, right, the common core is the same. It's trauma in childhood, or maybe not, if it's not trauma, but it is traumatizing to an infant. It is abandonment, real or perceived, in those very crucial early times where mother needs to be attuned to child and child needs, it's that very basic, mother is the first object. Mother is the first love object, but mother is the first object. And as Bradshaw said, mother's face is the world to the infant. And when the mother's face doesn't mirror back what creates emotional safety for a child, which is on a biological level at that point in time, then the child feels distress. The child feels, on a biological level, a threat to their survival. And well, I read that. And Roller Girl says pathologies. Sorry, one word alone that I don't know. Pathology. I don't have any context for what you're saying. And then interesting. Don't know what you're talking about. Michelle, oh no, not at all. Laugh out loud. See, I don't understand this, but never mind. Probably that's just me. I thought he was being funny about it. My bad. Oh, okay. But you're saying, oh no, not at all. Laugh out loud. I don't understand how people use laugh out loud would you say to me in person, oh no, ha 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 ha? Like, see, I don't get it. Okay, so maybe it's my Asperger's. I'm just saying. Um, but okay, I can't know because when people put laugh out loud beside things, that's usually meaning I'm laughing. It's a joke. It's a good thing. I don't know, or maybe I've got it all wrong. CB recently I recently mentioned something about a primal fear and discussed response toward my BPDX. I knew him for 17 years and never felt that before. Well, probably something instinctual in you, that and what you were starting to realize maybe that you didn't want to know or that you might have known for a while about him, and what was really happening there. Daniel, has your venue changed or are we in a different room now? I'm used to seeing a bookcase in the background with a few dogs' heads popping up. Oh, well, I changed a lot of things around, but like, I don't know well, if you mean in recent videos, the bookcase is over there. The desk is beside me here. There's another desk in front of me, and this is a chair and there's a couch back there. So I'm still in the same room. I just move around it a little bit more, I guess you could say. So, Rab, I remember there was one day when we were going to go for a walk, and I had to do groceries before I came. I called to say I'm coming, and she's like, quote, I don't want to see you today. Um, your story. She probably felt abandoned by the fact that you weren't there right when she expected you to be. Joe, I'm learning that we are the significant other aren't normal either. Yeah, whatever normal means, but I get your point. Just different and likely better in touch with emotions, except we don't draw the line. Um, yes, valiant codependency, I'll just say that. Uh, yeah, it's a meeting in the middle of impossibility. Oh, you said Rob, because she didn't want to see you today because your story wasn't making any sense. Fear of abandonment, doesn't matter what they say, what reason they give. Sizzle Pop Girl, the way you describe the BPD portal is very true. I experienced things like it were yesterday. One day I hope to change that. Well, yeah, stick with therapy, and that's a way to change that. And yeah, well, there is no all normal, but there are vast differences in what isn't in the shared reality and relational reality of most, right? Um, Daniel, is it true that that we tend to have these like built-in magnets that tend to draw us to those similar personality types? My last girlfriend had BPD, and my current one has bipolar, but is only wait a minute, but is only just on the scale. Well, I don't think there's a magnet, but there are issues that people need to be aware of inside of themselves that usually go back to childhood, usually goes back to a wounded inner child. So, and you always have to be careful. If you're with somebody with BPD, or if you're with somebody with bipolar, they might really have BPD too, or I don't know. It's all mixed up out there. It has been for years. CB, it's like my body decided over my mind. It was almost physical instinctual response. Yeah, well, I think last time we talked about it, basically, that's what I think it was. It was a physical, but the instinctual response from what I then went on to talk about the gut brain, right? So, yeah, and we need to trust those for sure. Hi there, Emmy Thomas. Um, well, I don't like to really talk more and more about pathologies because the pathologizing of the stigmatized label of pseudoscience's, psychiatry's narrative isn't what BPD really is. Ooh, yeah, I just said that. I don't just say this because I think this. I say it because it is also being argued and advocated for by many professionals, many whom are pioneering new therapeutic models, new theories based with a combination of neuroscience and not pathology at all, but humanistic psychology, looking at the context and the lens of people, which that to me brings many more solutions, much more help to people, is a model that gives people hope, not this idea that they're all pathologized. Because remember, psychiatry defines the way they like to define BPD by pathologizing human traits. So when they can pathologize human traits against one group of people that they throw into one group and not look at the human context or the trauma response of it all, and then feed them a bunch of psychiatric meds like that's supposed to help, I'm not really for the pathological model. I guess I could put it that way. But there's a lot of pathology speak out there for sure. Like mental illness in and of itself, I hate to burst bubbles, but it's been well researched. The humanistic psychology movement, Thomas As, mental illness in and of itself is a false construct. Ask yourself, Google it, read up, educate yourself. Why do you think it's a false construct, pseudo construct, pseudoscience of psychiatry? What am I talking about? Well, it works for them. Who else does it work for? Who else does it heal? Who else does it help? Um, oh, yeah, I give up on that, Daniel. Laugh out louds in texts, emails, chat, drive me crazy, okay? Just to put it mildly, I shouldn't have even mentioned it because you know what? It's not, no, it's something I try to just ignore. It's not, I don't find it's helpful. And yeah, it's a medium of communication here on the one side where there's no intonation or, I can't see the person saying it, so not a big deal. I just personally am not a big laugh out loud person, you know? I mean, in life, yes, but in typing it, no. Rap, just make sure when the person farted that they didn't have navy bean soup. Yeah, really. Tell me about it. My dog's like the last couple days, man. I'm like, well, I'm sitting here, or hopefully, yeah, it hasn't been lately when I've been on video with a client because that would be hard not to show a response. But I was doing something. Oh, I was doing a video for my other channel last night. I'm in the middle of editing it, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, which one of you did that? Because never mind, people parts, dog parts can be way more wicked. And then I never know if it's going to mean the next step or, oh no, they're just passing gas and it smells that bad. Ah, Michael, to Daniel, I feel like I can walk into a big room and walk straight over to someone with problems. That was why I asked about INFJ, because I think INFP I attracted to. Yeah, but you know what? Don't try to broaden your understanding of, because you're onto something there, Michael. That's probably happening for you in your life. Try to broaden your understanding of that out into other dynamics like codependency versus whatever, because the Myers-Briggs thing is not a measure of personality or quote personality disorders unquote. I don't even like this language anymore, but I still have to use it. Well, CB, when you found that alarming, you don't have to worry if it's still BPD or not. You just have to take care of yourself, get out of there, and move forward. Well, if you're going to try to trust your gut brain, I would suggest again, trying isn't doing. So you need to set an intention, and do it, and get away from that person. Go no contact. Easier said than done. Joe, enjoying this, feeling more connected. That's thanks all. We'll catch the rest in a bit. Yeah, there we go. There's okay. So there was the buffer, the back again, the gone, the here again. YouTube is having a lot of difficulties, and they really should take care of it because they don't take care of anything else. Just saying. Um, you said you loved what I said about laugh out loud. Well, yeah, it is what it is. Um, yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that, Wheels. I mean, really sorry to hear that. Um, oh, there's so many abbreviations that I know what laugh out loud is, but there's other ones I don't have a clue what they are. Because really, I'm not saying everybody's younger, but for younger people today, they have a whole language of this stuff that, I guess you have to really care about it to get into it. Um, but if we're here to talk about laugh out louds, then like I'm not interested because that's not the topic. And if that's what you need help with the most in your life, then you don't really have a problem. You know what I'm saying? Just saying. Um, and CB said the different perception between people with BPD and non-BPD is so confusing. How can they pretend to see like everyone else and completely hide what they really think? Well, I don't know if they're really aware of that, so I don't know. It's really more of an emotional interruption to their otherwise intellectual understanding of now. But even intellectually, it will get disrupted if the emotional response is strong enough, especially coming from a victimized or victim mentality. Michael, a sensitive, artistic, empathic type, oh, here we go, with a supportive mediator type. People don't get trapped in that word empathic, empath. Don't get trapped there. It's trap. I think I've got something I was recording or doing or working on that I hadn't finished. I somewhere. And I mean, to put these up online is not popular, but the empath narrative is out of control. And in my humble opinion, it's nuts. So there needs to be like, where did compassion go, right? Everything is empathy, 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 empathy. Well, healthy empathy is a wonderful thing. I happen to have that. My partner has that. It's fantastic. We have a healthy relationship. But it's not just empathy alone, right? Compassion and all kinds of other things are important. So I'm the person who's in the camp of going against the whole grain and narrative of empath. It's meaningless. It's a special invoked status of victim, is one thing that it is. Second thing it is empaths not wanting to be called codependents. And I don't know what it is for a lot of people. But there's healthy empathy, and then there's, oh, I'm so empathic, I can't help myself. I'm an empath, don't you know? Now there's super empaths, and they become super warrior empaths. And I would suggest a moment that you are a super warrior empath, where's your empathy gone? Empathy is weaponized. Empathy is way extended out beyond healthy limits, so it's not really empathy anymore. This idea of being so bloody empathic, what? None of us are saints. What are people doing? This is something else. And I know professionals are out there supporting it. They're writing books about it. And guess what they're doing? They're cashing in off people that take on the label of empaths, agony and suffering. Because nobody that labels themselves an empath is going to find their way out of what they need to find their way out of. That's just my practical, rational, critical thinking, psychological perspective on that. And it might mean nothing to billions of people. I get that. But what are people doing when they go like, I'm like real sensitive. I'm highly sensitive. I'm super sensitive. Which people are. I'm not trying to make fun of that. But then, oh yeah, stick the label empathic or empath beside it. You're way, way, way out from healthy empathy. So I don't even know what that becomes at that point. That could be discernibly definable in a rational way. I think people just let their emotions go too far in every which way direction. And that has in psychology, that would be called secondary gain payoff because it's denial and avoidance of something inside a self or something that needs to be known about self that would help somebody to help themselves more than this narrative of these labels. I don't like any labels actually, but we have to use some of them to be understood. And I would just, a reminder again about my second channel. This is the small one. That's the teeny one, where it's called self-integration. And I'm going to be talking about a lot of these things, but without the labels. So I did one video on codependency. But I'm trying to stay out of the labels because so much of what's going on in people's lives, it's trauma-based to start with, needs to be healed, and people need to grow. People need to understand themselves better, boundaries, etc. But not everything is about these labels of pathology from the pseudoscience of American psychiatry. And why do I keep saying that? Well, because the ICD-11, I'm not sure if it's been fully published yet or not. I gotta check into that soon and get my copy. But not the World Health, that's something else. But this manual that the rest of the world uses is more and more progressive, recognizes CPTSD, and seminal studies have been not only done this year, I haven't got time to get into them yet here in a video, but they've been replicated. I can't find any study that's ever been done. I'm not saying there isn't one, but I doubt it. But I can't find a study that's been done about BP or whatever, by American Pseudoscience of Psychiatry that has any kind of replication to it. They don't even allow criticism in their journals by other psychiatrists. What's that say about science? Well, if it's not scientific, then it's not evidentiary. It's only ideology. And then they pathologize based on ideology. This this is not like people who really know what they're doing or who really even care what they're doing. I don't know about every single psychiatrist, but who are they serving? Big Pharma and the wallet. They're not serving people. This is my humble opinion. And it's not even like sour grapes on my part for the shrinks I saw years ago, only 3 or 4 of them. Oh my God, that was enough for me to walk away and go, I don't need to deal with another one of these kooks. I'm not saying all psychiatrists are kooks, but Sizzle Pop Girl, what would you say are some main differences between those with BPD and those with NPD? Well, I'm not going to get into that here. It's just too many different subjects at once. I do some videos on that. I'm starting to get comments back like the what is it? Prefix co means both. Therefore, codependent. If you're with a narcissist or a co-narcissist, that reminds me, I got to get that book out from somewhere because I threw it somewhere. To tell you the truth, because it was like so stupid, I didn't want to deal with it. It's a woman, a professional from Ireland, who says if you're with a narcissist, you're a co-narcissist. And this idea of co everything. Well, if you're with a borderline, it doesn't make you a borderline. If you're borderline and you're with a bipolar, it doesn't make you bipolar. If you pass by a schizophrenic on the sidewalk, it doesn't make you schizophrenic. Anyway, see, it's out of control online. It's all out of control. So, anyways, I'm not going to get into the differences right now because here's the other thing that's being forwarded, that narcissists are codependent too. Really? No, I don't think so. See, what's lacking? People, I guess, need to push information around all day for the hell of it. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But there's no common sense in the conflating of all these things being conflated. So there are many major differences between BPD and MPD. But any day now, the pseudoscience of American psychiatry will fuse them together anyway. Just watch. Just wait. It's coming, probably. They shouldn't. BPD is a trauma. Well, they're both trauma responses, but they should not be in anything called. Well, they don't even use really cluster B anymore. Just a second here. They're really using the 5-factor trait model, which means you can diagnose a ham sandwich with whatever personality disorder you want. Why? Well, if you're looking for trait openness and you're a psychiatrist and somebody in your office doesn't agree with you, then they not only get slagged on, oh, they're disagreeable, not agreeable, and they don't have openness as a trait either. It's so arbitrary. I don't know. Yeah. Michelle, blocking my ex after a month, no contact, has been very difficult for me. But how to do it, wondering if he was going to Hoover me at any given, it gave you anxiety. Well, yes. Your videos helped me to do it. Well, I'm glad. I just wish my voice would behave itself. Oh. We have Cat walking up in front of Buffy's cage. It's like teasing the heck out of her. If only they could get along. No, but they can't. Rafe is still missing Lucy because Lucy used to let him come up and cuddle with her and lick her nose and lick her ears, lick her face. Side note, pets. Nicole, you're correct about, quote, empathic, unquote. Cheers for telling your truth. I'm going to have more coming on that because guess what? For those people I'm always going to be hated by and unpopular, well, let's really entrench that, shall we? Because I'm tired of the nonsense. I'm just tired of the nonsense online. And guess what? You don't have to be a brainiac. You know, I'm not saying I know everything. But you know what's also a lost art in this world? Common freaking sense. And I am a big advocate of common sense. So yeah, it's not popular to say, but like some of these people, there's this new channel I saw. Oh my god, what is it? Uprising Empath or Empath Uprising or something. The guy isn't even. The guy comes off more like a narcissist than I'm not saying he is. I wouldn't know, but comes off more like a narcissist than an empath. I don't know. A lot of nonsense, but I can't watch that channel. I just saw it once. Joe, amen to the crap called empath. Yes, I say the same thing. Sizzle Pop Girl, I have BPD and truly believed I was an empath. Well, I'm sorry. The myth of the borderline empath. It's huge. It's growing out there by the day, but it is a myth nonetheless. So I'm getting passion. I need to, people think that means I'm angry. I'm not. You said I was 11 and really confused to say the least. I was just trying to understand myself, ironically. Well, okay. But here's the reason why most people with BPD aren't empaths, okay? So until unless significant treatment, lack of self-reference, no other reference, okay? Projective identification, what they're feeling, overwhelming them, gets projectively identified, not just projected, out onto other, closest other. Oh, I know what they're feeling. I feel what they're feeling, so much claims the quote. I'm not saying this to you, but quotes says the quote borderline empath unquote, because this is huge online, right, in general. And then they think they know what everybody else is feeling, and then more to the point, from their magical thinking and the projective identification, which is really them seeing themselves mirrored back, but maybe not knowing that or not wanting to really see that aspect of, they can't take it in. Oh, I so understand these people's emotion. Yeah, because it's theirs. It's all All comes back to self, self, self. The lack of self all comes back. And then the other part of that is now this empath narrative, let alone, quote, the borderline empath, which is an unquote, which is an absolute myth, because it's getting folded in under this nonsensical idea of what is an empath anyway. And so people with BPD or without BPD who think they're so empaths are now feeling so much, don't you know? And they might have a ton of feelings, but they're projecting them out on other people. They're going, I know how you feel. I really feel for how you feel, but it's really about them. Oh, and the other thing is now they're taking their feelings, their magical feelings, and thinking that they know what people are thinking. Feeling, more to the point, feeling that they know what other people are thinking. Well, think about that for a minute in a critical framework. It's nonsense. It can't even work that way. But I wasn't saying that all to you, Sizzle Pop, just in general. Just see, strange this X brought out the codependent in me. Well, they can bring it out, but guess what? It was there prior. It's not like a brand new thing in your life, but yeah, you can become much more aware of it or more aware of aspects of what that really means for you than you ever were before. But people with BPD or NPD don't create codependence, codependency in other people. It's already there. I'm going to be so not popular today. Maybe no@gmail.com will email me again. I don't give a crap. Anyway, what was the rest of your comment? I wasn't like that in previous relationships, always extremely independent and strong. Well, I don't think people with BP bring it out in people as in create it. But whatever was happening for you before, you're probably carrying around something a little codependent, but it wasn't triggered. Is the best way I can put it. Because no, they don't create it. Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Moral. XJW here. I don't know what JW means. CV, so confusing. Do they show only their positive side in order to fake they are okay? Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Like a kind of deflection, but that doesn't mean it's true. So who are they? Well, they don't know who they are. So they're chameleons and they'll try many things. And sometimes so it's a false self, so it's not authentic, but is it totally fake? When people with BPD are trying to, like, they might be emulating the last person that they wish they could have been like because they don't know who they are. And then maybe they're showing more of a positive side. Well, they're trying to, they have codependency too, so they're trying to put the best foot forward, so to speak. But it's more like it could be part of who they are if they could find the rest of themselves. It could be a remnant of self. Because I think a lot of people with BPD are really fantastic people blocked by trauma. So if they would go and get enough treatment to recover and heal, they would be like they'd be wonderful people that you'd want to know. So they show only their positive side in order to fake they're okay. I don't think it's like that. I think it's more complicated than that. And I think it goes to that, for lack of a better way of putting it, like in Eric Berne's transactional analysis, there is no life script called borderline personality or the trauma response of borderline personality. But I adapt it that way to say, in the life script or the schemas that people with BPD are living out and through and constantly re-experiencing, that would be a life script wherein they've taken a position of, I'm okay right now, which often means other isn't okay because everything is dichotomous for them. So they could be trying to do that to believe, or maybe they feel okay in a moment, whatever that might mean. And then the next thing you know, they get triggered and they're not okay. And all of a sudden you're okay. And so it's more complicated than just to say they fake it. because but then if they are faking something in the sense of faking it till you make it, that that could be a thing too. But yeah, it depends. If they're untreated, that won't work for very long. Michael, the kind of empathy I'm talking about is specific. It is okay, specific. It is a survival skill that certain people can look into another person's eyes and feel their emotions. It's called interjection. Ugh. What? I think you're mixing terms. Um, and that is not specific empathy at all. It is not even contained within the definition of healthy empathy. And so then you're talking about a survival skill. No, now you're talking about a survival skill, which empathy isn't one of them. So that would be the weaponizing of something that you equate with being empathic. I'm sorry, I don't understand at all. It doesn't make any sense to me. Um, let me see here. What else can I possibly think about in terms of um, specific empathy? People can look into another person's eyes. Sounds like a special power to me. Well, let me just give a thought to that for a minute. Because I think, yeah, interjection, I don't think that's what it means. Oh, I'm pretty sure it's not what it means. Yeah, I was just, yeah, checking something. Interjection is the unconscious adoption of the ideas and attributes of others. So, a, yes, you're using interjection incredibly incorrect there with respect. And basically, when something is interjected, it is interjected into self, and the interjection occurs based on an injunction. So injunctions create interjects, and when something is interjected, it is taken upon self. So this happens a lot in childhood. When there's don't talk, like the injunctions of don't talk rule, don't air the dirty laundry in the family, don't feel, don't do this, which are not always said, but they're injunctions. Then they get interjected, internalized, and become part of the inner critic narrative. So I have, with all due respect, Michael, no idea what you're talking about there whatsoever. That you think it's using empathy, which it's not, as a special survival skill, which empathy that has nothing to do with empathy. And you're going to look into someone's eyes and interject what? You can't interject anything into somebody's eyes by looking at them. So you're trying to extrapolate something from what are their eyes telling you, but as communication, is 93% nonverbal, right? So the way we move, the way we see, what somebody's eyes are doing, all that lovely stuff, and 7% is verbal, then what could you possibly be garnering? You can get things out of looking at people's eyes, but you have to look at the whole presentation, because often what's going on with people's eyes won't match the rest of what's going on with their body language. But anyway, Michael, it's just not correct in any way, shape, or form, I say with due respect, that you look into someone's eyes and interject anything. It's not an interjection. Yeah, wow, okay. Sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful in any way. Um, yeah, well, I think labels, like, originally were designed for clinicians to know the landscape of what they were dealing with. It was never supposed to be like everybody gets online and calls everybody a borderline, a narcissist, a this or that, the other thing, and everybody's positive that's what everybody else is. And I'm not saying people don't know that, but people shouldn't be diagnosing each other. And then the other thing is with all these labels, and some people have really erroneous ideas of what they mean or what they don't mean, but there's a lot of different information out there. It doesn't mean it's necessarily erroneous versus correct. It's just some of it makes no sense, you know. But then there's lots of information coming from different schools of thought, because there are a lot of professionals, there always have been over the course of time, that among other things they do and the work they contribute to the lexicon of hopefully more understanding than the opposite, they pioneer things, and but often not all of them, but some of those pioneers, like the most recent one being the guy that said codependency is self-love deficit disorder. um I would argue, are they trying to aggrandize themselves, or are they, because are they really trying to help people? Like, keep pathologizing, yeah, no, that's not going to help people. Really not. And this big divide and conquer of these labels, what's up with that too? I mean, obviously, there's a real simple solution to this in people's lives. When somebody disrespects you, when somebody abuses you, get out, walk away, end it. Why are people still there? Obviously, there's a constellation of reasons, psychological reasons, and woundedness from childhood why it's not that simple. But culture around us is starting to like get a chokehold on us in the sense that people have grown up, and there's so much codependency out there in songs and movies. It always has been. This idea that we should fight for love, excuse me. Should I fight to be liked by the people that hate everything I say online? I don't give a rat's ass about it. So, people have to, I think it goes back to whether or not people know themselves, which can go back to what happened to people in childhood, can go back to all those lovely they're not lovely, family injunctions, the family of origin system, why family of origin healing is important, to work towards self-differentiation, if not also recovery from codependency. But how do we describe any of this without some of the labels? So, I don't know. And then you look at CPTSD. P. Walker, in the first chapter of his book, he talks out of both sides of his mouth too. Quote somebody, and together they talk out of both sides of two mouths. Because he says, if psychiatry would recognize CPTSD, in America that is, because there's a difference with psychiatry around the world from America. There's a reason for that. It's called big profit, big pharma, etc. But if the DSM in America, I don't think they ever will, would recognize CPTSD, their growing DSM of the this is my words now, false construct of mental illness, going back to Pete Walker's words, or somebody he quoted in his book, would become a pamphlet. But then he had to sort of sideways walk away, kind of like, maybe not borderline personality disorder, like, really, really. Joe said, admitting that I have a wound to heal instead. This is screwing things up, not being a warrior, a shaman, an empath, or the wizard Gandalf. Right, right. Simply admitting that you have some woundedness to heal. And that's really the way to get there, right? To doing that work, to healing, to understanding, without all that fancy language around it that some people are, I guess, using as a defense. I mean, empathy, unhealthy empathy, is being weaponized more in the empath narrative than, I don't know, things we'd recognize as weapons. There's something very sort of gaslighting or very sort of like covert about that. I'm not saying it's intentional on everybody, and I don't know. And Wheel said, none of these labels make sense to me, so I don't try anymore. um, Especially with the personality labels they have now. Like, INFJ is not a personality label. It's from a Myers-Briggs test, which is used largely in industry, business, to assess certain things about people, but it's not a standardized personality test, like for a quote, personality disorder. And, where was I here? Yeah, I don't know why so many people obsess over these groups of letters. Well, yes, they stand for things, but it's all Myers-Briggs. And Myers-Briggs is more applicable to not mental health, but establishing or trying to establish characteristics of people that you might want to hire or how they're going to fit into your group, your organization. That's really what Myers-Briggs is mostly about. Uh, my comment for you. Interesting name. Autistic. I gotta make sure I'm seeing this right. BPD and gets full-blown anxiety attack when talking about commitment. No sex involved. He actually does not show lots of love after 3 years still. Open to therapy. Should I involve myself? The simple answer is no. Why? Why would you want to? When there are people out there who can meet you where you are today. Um, Depends, for males, it depends where on the autistic spectrum he is. Can be much more impacting for males. And yeah, well, BPD, and if he's not in treatment, and now that you know this person, um, it would take them years. And so, when you ask, should you involve yourself, think about why would you want to? Because, no disrespect to people with issues, but why would you want to? That's going to put you in a role of having to deal with everything that they don't know how to deal with. And that's just not our job in life. I mean, I have friends, and if a friend has an issue, a problem, a need that comes up, that's beyond their ability normally to take care, of course I will have empathy and I'll care. Well, more to the point, I'll have compassion and I will help. But I wouldn't choose to get involved with somebody that I didn't know or barely knew that I knew that about. No. And that's not to be stigmatizing or disrespectful. It's about having healthy boundaries and healthy boundaries to guide you through your life so you can live your best life. And Michael, I am a sensitive person. So part of what attracts me to certain people is that they can interact on this emotional plane. Um, yeah, but that what a tangled web can be woven there. You know, the more that somebody is sensitive, then you meet somebody who's maybe even more sensitive or as sensitive, and you get really deep into emotions, and yet, I'm not going to say always, but more often than not, that's going to mean there aren't sufficient boundaries between self and other or each other. And it's just going to get into a lot of emotional pitfalls um, that really aren't going to be beneficial, I guess, in the end. But I just want to say again, I don't know what you meant, but you can't look into somebody's eyes and interject anything. But you can look in someone's eyes and see something. But then you got to remember, we all have our own filters. So what I have to do, and when I work with clients and stuff, I suspend my own personal filter, and I look through a different lens. And that's where I think common sense and rationality and critical thinking are very important, even for sensitive people. Because everything in life isn't based on feelings. I don't know when society or a lot of people got into that. Like I got that email, no big deal. I could get a real shitty comment any minute here or later on the channel. And I'm like, but I'm a rational thinking person. So I look at it and go, it doesn't affect me emotionally at all. Check it. So what? And that's that, when we have the balance between intelligence up here and emotional intelligence, then we don't even have to like think about. I mean, I mentioned it because it's funny. The email I got, tragically funny. But I don't care about those things, and so when people are able with emotional intelligence to be critically, have the emotional intelligence and balance, relatively speaking, and be in a critical, rational, critical thinking place generally, then when you see something that's overly like emotional or whatever, um, or if it's coming at you that way, it's like, let it just bounce off because it's somebody else's. Like, it's really important to have healthy ego boundaries, but have those healthy boundaries between self, not only and other, but the rest of the freaking world for that matter, especially online, social media, online. Yeah, well, boundaries are important because anybody here any minute could say something to me that, whatever. And it's like, so I'm not going to let it affect me emotionally because I'm in a critical thinking space. And so managing, building up emotional intelligence really would help people with sensitivity. Because, I'm not an insensitive person. I think I came from being an extremely sensitive person through healing and recovery, over 3 decades ago, to being, I think, just, but I'm sensitive to lots of things. My friends, my partner, what they care about, what they're doing, how they feel. But it doesn't have to be this globalized sensitivity. Doesn't mean I'm insensitive to everything else either. But it's like, where's the middle? Where's the balance? That's what I think is healthiest for people to find. Because these feel like insults now. Make me just tired. I feel almost nothing else, just tired. Okay, well, you're tired, and something feels like insults now. Is that something I said? I don't know. Again, no reference for context. And I'm not here to insult anybody, but if you feel insulted, you're entitled to feel that all you want. Not my intention. And I'm not going to I'm not a placater. I'm not here to push around BS like maybe other people do. I don't know. But I'm not here to be mean. I'm not here to be unempathic. I'm just not here to be blubbery like empathic beyond healthy empathy. Oh, you didn't give me context really for what you're feeling or what you're saying. Wheels, a co-narcissist question mark. I know, God help us all is right, because there's just no end to this claptrap nonsense. Why are we showing narcs? Why are we shoving narcs in with people they abuse? I give up. I know. And why do people think that narcissists are codependents too? Because of the word dependence? Dependent on supply? That doesn't equal codependence. And like I'm always saying about that, when's the last time a narc tried to rescue you or overgive to you in a codependent kind of style of relating? I don't know, maybe I have no idea why people forward this stuff. And some of them professionals. I wish I could remember that woman's name. It's just I never do. It's a long one. My comment for you. Oh, you're talking, yes, the person with my comment for you. I mean, as a name. Do you mean he's refusing sex and intimacy? Michael, my sandwich was codependent. Okay. Um, I, yeah, whatever. Sarcasm there, I think. Who knows? It's flat text over here. Um, oh, I didn't know I did that. Because I was referring to the, oh, okay, well, see there, it's hard to know without context, right? I was referring to the senseless Hoovers, empty messages with no substance. Regular Hoovers I get from my son feel so indifferent, as if he did it out of boredom. What is that? Well, it's trying to get your attention, I guess, and some form of expression of something he needs or wants that, you know, I don't know. If you need to be no contact or extremely low contact, then I wouldn't even try to make sense. You said they're senseless Hoovers, so I don't think it helps to try to make sense out of it. Because if he's doing it out of boredom, yeah. Well, the only thing I can think that means is he's trying to use you for something. Nobody needs that. Wheels, I've run into a lot of stuff about empaths recently. Oh, it's all over the place. I still hardly have a clue what it means, but the mindset is so toxic in so many ways. Well, it really is. And it without social media, although a couple of professionals have written books, But without social media, I don't think it would have taken. Yeah, it was buffering. Okay, back. Or going to be back in a second. Well, maybe I'm back now. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. I guess I thought that JW meant Jehovah's Witness, but there's really no reference point for that here because I don't really talk much about people being Jehovah's Witnesses or exes, but that's what I thought it meant. But I just left it alone because I was like, okay, so you are an ex one of those, and I would probably say good for you, which would also be politically incorrect. And what's the best way to quote argue unquote with a BP person if you can't get out of the relationship? Oh, there's no best way to argue. Don't argue. That's a no-win. You're just putting yourself in a no-win position from the get-go. They love to argue. They want to argue all day. Depending, they're not all the same, but people with BPD that grow up in really chaotic, dramatic, argumentative, and otherwise kind of families of origin, um, yeah, the best thing to do is make a statement when they're calm that when you feel that things, it's, well, you got to really word it carefully. But I would recommend, um, whether you tell them anything when they're calm or not, yeah, you disengage it, you detach from it, you leave them alone with it, and then that will have consequences too. But I hate to say this, but it's a little bit like training a dog. If I have a puppy and he keeps biting on my fingers, I'm just going to take my hand away and ignore the puppy. And guess what? I hate to say this, but puppies learn faster than most people with BPD, especially if they're not well treated. The puppy will learn really quickly to leave your fingers alone with the teeth. So the best thing you can do for yourself, which you hope they might learn from, but do it for yourself first and foremostly, disengage, detach, walk away, leave, go out for a drive, go to the backyard, go to the basement, whatever avenues are open to you. And when they come back and go, but, and you did, nah, same thing. Disengage, detach. I'm not having this conversation with you. I do not want to talk about this. This is something you need to take care of for yourself. Neutral statements, calmly said, but don't engage it. And if you fight back, oh, you're just going to put yourself through hell. Waste a lot of time and energy for nothing. There's no winning when they're in that place, okay? If they haven't got enough treatment to be out of that place, then every argument is to their advantage because it's illogical and crazy making as hell. And what I'm talking about here too, where I was or tried to, that trying to understand the other alternate reality from the shared reality of how people without quote BPD and other things have a shared reality of interpersonal relating and what that is kind of about. Don't try to walk, don't try to have one foot on your planet and one foot on the person with BPD's planet. Not a good idea. Yeah, it was back and forth there for a bit. Wheels, do people with BPD mirror you? Yeah, well, in idealization, they definitely do. At other times, they might. Um, I've had clients that have talked about mirroring other people, trying to kind of do what they do, not understanding why they do it, not having emotional understanding. I've had clients with BPD talk about trying to copy TV characters, trying to be more like a TV character who's getting along. So there's a lot of that. So because they don't know who they are. So how are they really supposed to, and I'm not excusing abuse, but how are they really supposed to know how to relate on planet the rest of us in shared reality relating when they're on that planet relating from my past always and I'm, not knowing that. So yeah, they're trying to seek identity through other people unconsciously. They're trying to mirror, they're trying to learn. That's why they're so chameleon like. And always at the forefront of everything, consciously or unconsciously. If they think they're about to get abandoned, watch out. Or, oh, if it was just too nice and you were too kind and you got a little too close, engulfment, watch out. Because, they say BPD is disorganized attachment. I would still say that's probably, fair enough. But I think the approach avoidance conflict within, the fear of engulfment to the fear of abandonment, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, is really what is in the place of what is essentially no attachment. Um, yeah, no, Daniel, I think you're in a different time zone or something, right? Yeah. Or you have a better relationship with your bed than I do, meaning you probably get more sleep than I do. That's all I meant by that. Michael, it's a myth that BPD are all great people, deep underneath all the damage. It's a myth that BPD are all great people, deep underneath all the damage. Well, no, that would be more of an actual true statement of potential than the myth that really is the borderline, quote, empath, unquote. So I find that a little bit artsy backwards. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know, Roller Girl. Beyond what I've addressed, I respectfully don't know what Michael means. Because I think we're having a parallel communicative experience here. Not parallel, an unparalleled one. I'm not sure. Dea, do BPDs avoid eye contact during tough conversations? Well, I think more often than not. Now, some people with BPD might glare at you and try to intimidate at a point like that, but many will definitely, yeah, look away and be avoidant because they'll be experiencing, among other things that will be triggered, feelings of shame. Not that they'll be aware of that necessarily, but they might look down and they might look away because they just feel really bad, or they feel really bad and they feel really scared. So that can happen often, but not all people with BPD are the same. And CB, do people with BPD show a false self like narcissists? No. They have a false self, but it's not the same as a narcissistic false self. I mean, yeah. These are the videos I gotta do that I don't want to do, but I want to do them in an organized way so I don't like make a mistake in between because people with BPD are, that lousy term, the trauma response known as BPD are, have lost themselves to arrested emotional development. So have narcissists, different age stage of development, and they both mount in response to the lost authentic self, which Melanie Klein said, abandonment trauma psychologically kills the otherwise burgeoning authentic self. Quote there. So the difference between the borderline false self and the narcissistic or the narcissist false self is age and stage of that occurring, degree to which you're living through it. Narcissist pretty much full on. And then it's the strength of the narcissistic defenses. Those with NPD, much stronger labyrinth of defenses than BPD. And just another thing I'd like to say here to clear up something I heard somewhere. People with BPD don't have an empty black hole. They don't have this empty hole inside. That's how and working with clients for 30 years, I hear narcissists or people with narcissistic traits describing a black abyss inside, a black hole. People with BPD, well, somebody might use that terminology if they've heard it online now erroneously, but they usually talk about emptiness, feeling emptiness inside, feeling bored, feeling lost. Not so it fits more with narcissists, this big black hole they have to keep dumping supply into. People with BPD are not, though they have a lot of unmet needs, etc., and relational difficulties and all that the reasons behind underneath that, they don't have this like black hole in there. So when you're loving them or trying to give to them, it's not like you're pouring it into a black hole like a narcissist, but they're not taking it in. Narcissist takes in the derivative of what you're giving, the side effect, right? Supply, attention. Person with BPD feels so bad about themselves in an unconscious place, if not otherwise, that they can't take in kindness or trust love. So there's a big difference there too. Um, I like the little he's in here. Man, I wish I could just come here and be a comedian. Michael. Um, I'm sorry, I don't understand the sentence at all. So I'm just gonna leave it alone. Um, well, some people might think Myers Briggs is awesome in figuring out compatibility. Maybe it helps with that a bit, but there's nothing like knowing who you are and what your boundaries are and heading into it that way and discussing things and seeing if the other person can meet you where you are to find out about compatibility. Hey there, Nancy. Borderline personality is horrible. Being a loved one on the other side is beyond painful. Well, yeah, and I mean, the horrible reality of it is, in a 75%, it's a trauma response. In 25%, it's perception of abandonment that causes just as much difficulty for them. Oh, CB, you said you love the hat. Thank you. I have to keep. Yeah, I got a lot of hats I haven't worn for a while, but like circulate whatever closest by. I never leave the room. I'm just kidding. Uh, must seem like it though, right? Because wherever YouTubers do videos from, must seem like we're always sitting here, um, or wherever here is for different people. By trying to help people with BPD too much and neglect ourselves, we rob people with BPD of the experience of self growth. Well, here's another thing I heard somewhere. I wouldn't have a clue where, right? But if you're a codependent and you're with somebody with BPD, you're not stopping them from getting help. You're not in the way. You're not damaging them, that either. You're not damaging them. You're not the problem. You're enabling, fixing, rescuing, or not is not the reason that will either help them make a choice to get help or stop them from making a choice to get help. So, yeah, this is me from the grapevine trying to correct erroneous information yet again because there is a living pile of it, don't you know? But hey, it's all over the place too. Um, so, people really need to realize people are enabling doesn't help others, but in the case of BPD, it's not going to be the key thing that means, well, if you enable them, they're never going to choose therapy. If you stop enabling them, they're going to choose therapy. It's not that simple. But still, it's better for people to stop enabling them because that's people taking care of their own mental health. Wheels, oh, I get the Myers-Briggs part makes sense. I always wondered about that. I see people all over the internet proudly displaying, yeah, I know, and whatever else. So it seemed to add to everything else. I'm sure it's wildly popular on the dating apps. I don't even want to look. It came up in a couple streams, and I'm not what I'm here to talk about. Michael, I used to tutor physics. It isn't that I choose to suffer now, that I know I'm just saying in response to that other comment that I am drawn. Well, if you feel drawn, then that's how you feel. I'm not going to, I'll validate that for you, absolutely. But then the question is, what is it what in your history, what in your childhood, what you need to know more about yourself to understand why are you drawn? Because just because you're drawn, I hear you, but it might not be the best thing in the world for you. And sometimes we can feel drawn to lots of different things. Like, I mean, I've lost most of that weight from the medical problem, but still, I don't feel drawn. But if I felt drawn to a gallon of ice cream today, I wouldn't go there. Just saying, wouldn't be good for me. So when people feel drawn, there's more they need to know about what's driving that, and then when you understand what's under that, you can do something about it and change that. if in fact you're being drawn to things that aren't healthy for you or people or whatever it is. Kaz, no, my message didn't show up for you somehow. So you had no chance to understand what I'm going on about. Well, okay, but yeah, well, it's probably because it might have been in the buffering, right? Could have got lost in the buffering. Um, Joe, are you referring to something like that? Are you referring to, since I don't even know what the word is, I don't think I'm referring to it, right? I'm not sure what that is. Just, yeah, I absolutely love your straightforwardness. You, you're straightforward. You are. Oh, okay. Thank you. I respect your advice and knowledge very much and try, and, sorry, and it very much resonates. Well, I'm glad. I hope it's helpful. Oh, I see. Roller Girl was commenting on when it was buffering versus when it was good now, or buffering or good now, because it was like back and forth, back and forth. Um, and yes, Michael, it's the male role in dating. Is the male role in dating codependent? Not by itself. There are many males who are codependent who date, but no, the male role per se, taken out of the context of everything else, is not onto its own self or by itself a codependent role. You are supposed to provide support, protection, money in exchange for question mark. Before you realize there is a problem, you get in too deep. Well, I think you're just describing that maybe, Michael, you have codependency, but it's not just because you're a man wanting to date. So again, you might benefit from looking into more about why, where, what caused the codependency. What more can you know about that to help create any change if you're interested in your life? Because really, I mean, there is part of this goes back to older cultural ideas that many women may still ascribe to when it's convenient for them, because they don't want to ascribe to the non-equality or whatever feminist radical wave, fifth wave feminists are on about. I have no idea, but then they do expect a man to be the protector. I don't. I mean, I have relationships with men, but I have friends. I don't expect them to be my protector. Yeah, maybe they can fix the odd thing I don't have a clue about, but no. If women are just expecting support and protection and money in exchange for, and the question mark, well, obviously that would probably be sex, wouldn't it? That is the a relationship that begins like that goes like that from the get go. Well, you're dealing with somebody who's at least codependent, as well as your own codependency, if not something else, because I think most men should think about it this way, that your value is inherent in who you are and in what you have to offer in terms of who you are, what you will share emotionally, what you will share sexually, what you will share about yourself, etc. It's not so that sounds like you're getting into exchanges with people. You have, I think, codependency just sounds like, and it sounds like you're getting involved with other people, women, that have other things and or codependency. And no man should ever see their role as only support, protection, and money in exchange for sex or in exchange for being loved. Because you are worth loving, being loved, being cared about, you know, having friends give you positive regard and respect without any set expectations. And so it sounds like for you, Michael, you've definitely experienced that the male role of dating is codependency. But I would suggest to you very respectfully that if you want to look into your own healing and recovery journey there, that's not quote the male role, but that is maybe a role that you've been in yourself. Yeah, I like that gray rock to BPD. So do for the narcissist what you would do to the border for the borderline. Okay. Um, there's words mean things, and there's at least to me. I don't think I'm alone, but there's a reason why I say detach instead of gray rock. Because just things are associated with things. Not a right or wrong, really just probably associations. Rab, yes, they love to argue and will accuse you of picking a fight if you want to talk about anything like a quote, well, normal adult, but averagely healthy adult. Yes, absolutely. Um, yes, detachment and disengagement instead of arguing. Thank you, Anthony. You're so generous. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Very, very kind of you. Thank you. And, well, you're very welcome. And Jay just got here, calm, hurt, and confused. Oh man, yeah. Well, yeah, because so much goes on for people with BPD. It's like, and the other person's sitting there going like, what? Of course, it can get very painful. But, and, oh, you're welcome, my comment for you. And you said, do BPDs normally always show two of the same characteristics, like the good guy and the bad guy, but not so bad. But the characters always remain the same, like in opinions, needs plus arguments. That they always show two of the same different characters. Well, I can't say always, but I mean, everybody with BP is different. Lots have things in common that they will do, the way that they will react. Um, and they're very rigid, right? Very black and white. So there isn't a lot of room for movement or middle ground with other people. So and the good guy bad guy thing, I mean, they can be acting as both at once and or projecting that out onto you. um and Michael, my comment about the sandwich was related to your comment about diagnosing a ham sandwich. No, well, yeah, I realized it was somehow related, but again, without context, I didn't know what meaning you were trying to forward. Yeah, narcs are definitely not codependents as wheels. And you know that firsthand. They always have ulterior motives. Yep. Um, Nicole, what would you say the difference between quote black hole and quote empty is? Well, you didn't say is, but well, I think like the black hole, being associated, I don't know, in mind space, but it's like rather a big abyss. Okay, so there is a difference. Like there are differences between BPD and NPD. There would be a difference to the emptiness, lostness, and boredom of somebody with BPD versus a black hole, often described by, well, if you can ever get one to talk to you, right? Or me, I work with some narcissists, because narcissists are after supply. They're not after the warm fuzzies. People with BPD feeling emptiness, feeling bored, feeling lost, those are incredible feelings. I don't mean good feelings. They are just there's a lot of feeling there that's associated with that. Narcissist doesn't have all that feeling going on. It's like black hole, bill, supply, now, isn't so people with BPD have many, many more feelings, which is both really really difficult for them to deal with, but also it's a positive sign because as we know, there's so much more treatment and healing and recovery is possible, unless you're stuck in the pseudoscience narrative that they're somehow going to deliver a quote cure to something that isn't a brain disease or really a mental disorder or a mental illness or all of their other nonsense speak for it. It's a trauma response. Understood in its human context can make a vast difference in how people can be helped to go about healing that woundedness. And to suggest that people with BPD cannot heal that woundedness, then people that say that kind of crap should also admit that they haven't healed codependency and that there's no such thing as codependency recovery. Or when you get a cut on your hand, it's never going to heal, right? Okay? So whatever happens to you is going to be for life because it's an inane and ignorant, meaning unknowing, and a logical fallacy, false equivalency argument. Shadow. Oh man, I can't see. Moses. Hi AJ, your videos really help a lot in healing. Thank you, or you're welcome. My BPDXF 2 months ago. Is it common to feel traumatized and question my own qualities after the relationship? Yes, very common and very painful and all too common. But what you really need to know, but of course my saying it won't make you know it, if you know what I mean. But you need to keep working out and working on the reality that why ever they left, why ever that relationship ended, it's not your fault. And I'm not trying to say it's all the person with BPD's fault all the time, but it is the trauma that they're carrying. It is the fact that they can't attach, the fact that they can't love, the fact that they have no consistency, no congruency, no sense of self, no self. All of those things, fear of abandonment, fear of engulfment, these are all the issues really why these relationships are really impossible. Because people with BPD are on a different emotional, relational reality planet. And so again, how to bridge the difference, how to bridge the gap, it can't really be bridged unless they get really significant treatment. So and it's very common to feel traumatized after, absolutely. And you really want to get yourself some help for that. Because it sounds like you're blaming yourself. Maybe they're parting words if they had any where this is all your fault and you're this, that, and the other thing, which really speaks to more what they think of themselves, but they'll project it out onto you. So it's really important to know that you're not the bad guy or the bad person, and there's nothing. I mean, you are to them in the value split, but there's nothing you could have changed. Let me put it that way. I'm not trying to say non-borderlines are perfect and borderlines are totally imperfect, but it's their narrative, it's their past, it's their trauma, and then other people just get subjected to it. And then no closure, and you have to try to figure out what all that means, and it's very painful. Andre, do you think it's possible under very specific circumstances to stay with a BPD and help through treatment while maintaining the relationship? Not trying to justify codependency, just curious. Well, that's interesting you added that on because in a way, it would be hard for you to, get in recovery and healing for your own codependency while doing that. But do I think it's possible under very specific circumstances? Well, I'm not going to say 100% it's not, because there's always circumstances that are different. The biggest difference being that they really have to be dedicated to that treatment and soaking it up like a sponge and in action with it. So if they can create even the slightest changes quickly, building to more, there are some situations like that. They are such a small percent that I don't talk about it that often, but you know your situation better. And I would say sometimes, and again, I don't know if it's like 5% or 7%, not even 10% of times, it might be possible and it might be doable. I just don't like to give false hope. But so to you, I would not say it's impossible, right? So you just have to really evaluate what's happening there. And then you should be in your own healing and recovery for codependency at the same time that they're, doing hopefully treatment for BPD. Joe, it was a name that you might have been trying to remember, AJ. Oh, okay, well, it's just not going in my head right now at all. So I'm sorry about that. Michael, I was drawn to chocolate donut today. For real though. Okay, but let me say this, Michael, with all due respect. If you're drawn to a chocolate donut, so you ate one, where's your autonomy? Where's your critical thinking? Where's your ability to make a choice? Where is that in that process of a feeling, a thought, and then a feeling, whether you know the thought or not? The thought, the feeling, the want for the donut, eating the donut. Because all of those are choices a long time. I mean, if you had a chocolate donut, that's fine, like whatever. But I'm just saying, drawn to it. It's the way you describe it. It's sort of like that was a series of choices that you made. Started with a thought. Were you aware of the thought? I feel like a donut. Or did you pass a donut store or something and then I feel like a donut. And the second thing would be, and I'm going to go get a donut. That's a choice, an action. So you're not just drawn to the donut because that infers um, helplessness or learned helplessness. Like, donut was there, got pulled over to it, got it shoved down my throat. So that, that I'm just using that example as an analogy of something's missing in the process of being drawn to, because there needs to be more conscious awareness about what's really happening when one feels drawn. Yeah. Do BPDs get motivated to get help and heal during a breakup if they felt the relationship was great, or if they're done, they're done? Well, for some, when they're done, they're done. For others, when they're done, they're never done. But then you have to do something about that yourself. But no, what motivates people to get treatment from BPD is as varied and vast as all the individuals with BPD. So for some, it might be a breakup. It might motivate them, but for many, it doesn't. So it's really hard to say what'll motivate them. But one thing I can say for sure is no across the board anyway. Um, correlation between ending a relationship or having a relationship end and a person with BPD having motivation to get therapy. Not necessarily. So it's an individual thing. And often for many, when they're done, they're done. The valuation split, out of sight, out of mind. And at that point, by the way, somebody who is, been in a relationship with that person with BPD or cares about that person with BPD, that's where your cue comes in to go your own way, go no contact, heal yourself, move forward in your own life. Whether they're going to get treatment or not, who knows? They have to choose it. Shadow Moses, recurring flashbacks, anxiety, and physical symptoms. Questioning a lot of the relationship in myself. The reoccurring flashback terrifies me. Well, I'm sorry to hear you're going through that, but I hope you'll reach out and get some help because you shouldn't be going through that alone. And you need to learn someone could help you with coping and yeah, coping skills and tools and techniques for that because that's a lot to go through. And you've definitely been traumatized. Well, and you're questioning the relationship and yourself, yes. So, my best recommendation based on that would be if you're not already seeing a therapist, you would really benefit from doing so that you can, cope with what you need to cope with right now, and work toward getting yourself into a better place. Joe, oh, loved what you just said about love being exchanged for support, sex, everything that you do for the BPD rather than who you are. It happens often, and of course, narcissists will do that all day long too. It's not the same, but still. Um, Dea says to Wheels, NPDs are codependent, not in their giving, lack of boundaries, but in needing to be in company all the time. They can't be single alone. Oh, that's just not true. First of all, not all narcissists are the same either. That's the other fallacy online. Like they're all in lockstep the same. No, they're not. And the other thing is they're not. I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, and no doubt one day I'll get blue in the face because it'll never end. But they're not. Narcissists are not codependents too. They just aren't. Um, they don't need anything. They do, but they don't know that. They demand and they take and they transact and they want supply and they want attention, but that is a dependency need. It is not codependency. For what it's worth. Um, Maybe after the anger outburst, then later I felt bad and apologized. The switch. Dea, I'm still trying to figure out if my guy was BPD. No empathy. got triggered all the time and saw me through the past and not for me. Dumped me in one word in an argument, ignoring me ever since. Now, whether that was BPD or BPD comorbid NPD or NPD, I know you might really have a want to know and figure that out, but I would say work on yourself, move forward, get into your own healing recovery. Maybe you can reflect back on that when you're in a really terrific and healed place. If you still care, you see. Because what's more important is what you know that happened and how you feel. So it's more important to focus on you and take care of you now. Well, now somebody wants a chocolate donut. Yeah, okay. The power of suggestion. And yet we have autonomous choices to make, even given the power of a suggestion. I don't feel like a chocolate donut at all. Michael, hmm. Well, since I don't know what Tom dating means, I'll leave that alone. Michael, if there's a confrontation between a woman and an immigrant man on a subway, would you support a man in leaving the train and not defending her? There was an article about this. If there was a confrontation between a woman, interesting, it has to be an immigrant man, because whether an immigrant, whether white, green, purple, a man's a man, and poor behavior is poor behavior. Okay, so if there was a confrontation between a woman and a quote immigrant man on a subway, would you support a man in leaving the train and not defending her? Um, it would depend on the man. So it would depend on if the quote immigrant man was twice the size of a man sitting there, or if there were more men that could help. But I think yes, in that regard, if you're alluding to would a woman look toward a man to protect her from a man who's aggressing toward her? Absolutely. But that's not a codependent or a contract writing expectation. That's really about civility. It's a whole entire different situation than a relationship. I don't think it would be codependent to want to help somebody. And I'll just add in if I was on a subway, it's happened to me before. So I've been in many places before where I've seen someone assaulting someone, a man assaulting a woman, and a big man, and I couldn't do anything about that. So, but I immediately called 911, especially in the day of a cell phone. But if I had to run somewhere years ago to a payphone, that's the next best thing you do if you can't literally physically intervene. But yes, I think it would behoove anyone who could help or a group of people who could help and someone call 911 at the same time to not just leave the train. But of course, there will be many people that will choose to leave the train because we live in a world that's as much as empathy, everything online, empath online. We live in a world where a lot of people don't give a crap about anybody. So there's that too. But that almost sounds like a riddle. So that's just my opinion. Yeah. Um, Shadow Moses, thank you, AJ. Bless you. And more power to you. Well, bless you too, and take care of yourself, and needing if you need a little bit of help with that to do that, that's the best thing to do because there's no shame in reaching out for help. You've obviously been traumatized, and I really feel for you about that. I'm sorry to hear that, and I'm sorry for what you're going through too. um, Something over there is beeping. Just so you answer my question um, about projection. My ex said I had no empathy and couldn't love. Well, yeah, because they project out onto you what's true about themselves because they're already in the projective identification process with you, and therefore, to them, unbeknownst to them, you are them. because they don't see you. Or you are wounding mommy or daddy, but you're not you to them. That's the problem. That's why people without BPD are never going to understand the people with BPD, and the people with BPD never going to understand what it is that healthy relating is all about, because they're like two different freaking relational realities and planets. And I don't say that to insult anybody. It just really is that kind of cataclysmic collision when one reality of relational style and expectation comes together with the trauma response known as BPD's unknowing, unaware of themselves and ways to relate and how they impact others' reality. Joe, to Andre, the hardest thing to do now is to focus on yourself, but you got to let go of that hope and just give them over to God for their own healing work on, hang on, work on your own healing work. Yes. My comment for you, what would your suggestion be if you want to help a guy with BPD? Don't. But no good therapy options around, like a 6 months waiting list at least. He wants help. Can you start something at home one on one? No, no, because I need professional help. And you might have all good intentions and everything, but trust me, it's going to backfire on you. They're going to get triggered. It's too complicated. You're going to end up getting victimized. And I'm sorry to hear about the wait list, but 6 months is still bad, but some places it's 2 years to 5 years. But no, I wouldn't advise you to do that. Now, it's your choice whether or not you do it, but I wouldn't advise it. It's interesting when people have to preface their statements with he. I don't know what that means. I'm just saying. Interesting. Wheels. Autonomy can be difficult when you were never allowed to have it in any real capacity. Realizing I can have it, too, has definitely been an adjustment over the past few years. But you can have it, absolutely. It's everybody's right, and everybody needs to grab it, reclaim it in whatever ways they can. Um, and Dea, thanks, AJ. Cool catching you live from the other side of the globe, 5 a.m. Wish you all a great night. Yeah, well, have a good sleep. Take care. Just see, I think I asked her what planet she was on during one of her arguments. She started. Well, and I don't mean to use the planet analogy or the different realities as any insult to people with BPD, but it's the core of why there isn't going to ever be understanding between those two groups of people. And often, wow, it's dry in here, in any relationship type. And no matter how much you try to understand the person with BPD, I'm not going to change your relational experience with them, what you're experiencing from them. And it's not going to help elucidate for them the fact that they're in a different relational reality, more often than not called their past and their childhood and their trauma and their unresolved issues with mommy and or daddy. And that's really prevalent in BPD, super prevalent. So it's something that really needs to be underscored as being the core of why people who don't have BPD are never really going to understand people with BPD, and why people with BPD are never really going to understand people who don't have BPD, unless until they get significant treatment. Because I am living proof, though people say all kinds of, I don't give a crap what anybody says about it. I live my life. People that know me. People that don't know me, oh yeah, they like to, even if they had a brief interaction with me somehow, they like to think they know me in total. Yeah, sure. Okay. Lovely projection. Point being, anyway, what was my point? Yeah. So I had 1 foot on, or a foot and a half or whatever, on Planet BPD years ago. Although some revisionist history, I was labeled, and hey, I might put that out somewhere. I've been, in a cogent fashion. But so if I had a foot on Planet BPD, it's possible to heal and recover and come back to, or come to, the relational shared reality of the averagely healthy human beings out there who otherwise never had BPD. And so for people forwarding that codependence can heal, they need to stop saying that people with BPD can never heal, because then they're operating under a false equivalency and logical fallacies, far plethora of them, way too many to describe or get into defining. And Just C says she was so confusing though. Yeah, but that's the whole shtick, don't you know? And I'm not saying it's a shtick, but the reality of planet trauma response known as BPD relating is always going to be confusing when you're on planet I'm trying to relate like most other people do. What's happening here? And so I don't mean any disrespect to people with BPD with that. However, many will be feeling like I'm just horrible in spite of that fact. So, what can I say really? Not a whole lot. So, this is, people with BPD without a self walking around in the world wondering why everybody else doesn't understand them. Oh, because everybody else is supposed to understand them. Meanwhile, they're too busy in the myth of the borderline empath, thinking that they totally understand from a feeling basis of their incongruence, lack of self, inconsistency, overfeeling from the past in their own reality. They think somehow they can be an empath and discern what the heck you're thinking, let alone what you're feeling. No, it's projective identification run amok. This is, and so is this, the reality of people with BPD. That's clear to most people. Very understandable that, and yet why the heck is it happening? Who knows, right? Wills, until you start to make choices, even small ones, once I realized I had the right to make small choices, I started to fight for bigger ones. Now I don't want to lose my autonomy to anything or anyone. Good for you, Wills, and so glad that you realize that, and so glad that you know that now, because yes, when people are victimized in childhood by a narcissist especially, or even somebody with BPD or BPD NPD as a parent, it's devastating. So, if you've seen or you've had somebody screaming at you like this woman is screaming at somebody, right? Then you got to get into this place, right? Mindfulness. You got to get into a calm, emotionally detached place. I know that there's a boundary between you and them, and you're entitled to feel calm. Well, I shouldn't use the word entitled, but you have the autonomy to choose to feel calm. You can be where you're at in this here and now moment, no matter where they're at with whatever they're going on about, because they're dealing with their past so often in the here and now. It has nothing to do with you. They don't see you. They see you as parent, wounding parent, object, other. They don't see you much more than that in idealization either. So you have to think about yourself a little bit more. Think about them a whole lot less, because they have to get the help that they need for themselves. And they have to learn what's required in this world to get on a journey of recovery that will lead them to adulting. Whoops, I let it slip. Sorry about that. And so, yes, it's all about whether one is an adult in a comprehensive, cohesive, consistent, congruent way. Oh, I hit the wrong one. What do you know? Have you ever felt like this guy probably feels right now? Or somebody will just say she has BPD. And she's got a whole lot of stuff to talk about, a whole lot of issues going on. This guy's like, what happened here? I don't know. So it's different relational realities. And I don't mean to say that with that people with BPD are out of touch with all reality. No. But in terms of relational reality, interpersonal relational reality, they are definitely not in the shared space that the rest of us would probably agree is the objective reality of what it is to be relating to somebody with BPD. Oh, let's just watch these two ignore each other down the beach one more time. Because at least the beach is calming. But, there's nothing really sadder in life or more difficult for people than when, like, okay, again, I'm just, this is my interpretation. This guy probably really loves this woman, but this woman, she got triggered, she went off somewhere, and this guy's like, I don't know what's going on here, but he looks a little shell shocked, and if he doesn't say something, then maybe she's a quiet borderline, maybe she's going to be quiet for a long time, and then why is the responsibility up to him to fix something that he didn't even start? I'm just giving a little, narrative to a video, but it's a narrative that people can definitely be experiencing in relationships. So I really think what's really important about the topic today or the message today to take away is that if you're somebody with BPD, or you've been in a relationship with somebody with BPD, you need to know that you really can't understand, and that all your efforts to understand are self-abandonment, and that you need to take care of you, and you need to focus on you and gain your autonomy back, because if you have a child, you still have to take care of you first so you can take care of the child. But if you're trying to have a relationship with somebody that feels more like a child to you, then you have to really give a second thought to, why are you still there? Or, as somebody's wanting to say, why are you, quote, drawn, unquote, to that? And, well, Michael, the point of the video wasn't about how she looked one way or the other, but that's your observation. Too young for what would be my question. Shadow Moses, that's exactly something like me and my quiet BPDX. I'm sorry to hear that. Just see, my ex has screamed into the phone like that woman. Freaked me out. Oh, I'm sure many people with BPD have. I'm sorry to hear that too. And Shadow Moses, walking on the beach, silent treatment, while trying to open communication to solve problems. Yeah, and it doesn't really work, does it? Trying to open communication in general, specifically, but also trying to open it to solve problems rarely ever works. And especially when they're in that place of they've already withdrawn and they're already, they've already split you. Um, Very difficult place to be, because it's not the responsibility of you or the other person in the equation to try to solve what somebody just laid down, right? If they just laid it down, if they just said it, if they just acted it out or acted it in, then that's their responsibility. And that's where codependents get into that overgiving as well. I don't know why I went like that, because my hand's not going to fly away anywhere anytime soon. I'm still using it, it's still attached. Anyway, it's really important. I think codependents get really stuck, amongst all other kinds of things, in trying to understand the person with BPD. And you can get a lot of intellectual understanding that won't filter into your emotional landscape and will only be causing you more and more, not only damage but trauma, and it's not really going to help you out. And then you can't help them out as much as you want to help them out. Kaz, I want to ask about families that seem close to one another but are somehow not really invested in each other, disinterested, and refuse to take care of each other. Well, that's a dysfunctional family of origin that may have an alcoholic in it, a narcissist, a borderline, you never know. But that's a family with a lot of injunctions, a lot of like family rules, like don't talk, don't feel. It sounds like a very dysfunctional, unhealthy family system. My comment for you, okay, let me redefine. What if you are stranded on another planet, just you and the BPD, and there's no therapist available? What direction to take to survive together without going nuts? Well, in that case, I would say pretty much the same thing. Stay detached emotionally. Don't take what they do personally. And on another planet, stuck together without going nuts, don't try to fix their problems. Don't try to help them. Just find a way to build shelter. You might have to build shelter for each other, like for each one of you separate, and then find a way to forage food to survive. But don't try to help them or fix them, even if you're on another planet, because if you can't stand the solitude of being autonomous and driven by your own self, then you will go nuts. In that scenario, I'm just saying. So I'm still not going to give a different answer because there's no way to rescue, help, or fix or change a person with BPD. They need professional help. Kaz, is it somehow a family that would produce a BPD children? Well, that really all happens because the pseudoscience of psychiatry has not proven anything about their heritability. There's a psychiatrist out there. I think what a jerk, actually. With this thought, I'm not saying the guy's a jerk in total. I don't know the guy. There's a guy out there that actually says BPD is 55% heritable. I'm like, oh, really? What test tube did that come out of, genius? Um, so they don't have any answers to the genetics, right? We know that trauma impacts the brain, but what they don't talk about is we equally know that therapy, many modalities of therapy, even talk therapy, will help with a neuroplasticity process in which the brain can change itself and the brain can heal itself. So, family of origin, and even what the pseudoscience of psychiatry does say is, well, people with BPD have a sensitive temperament. Okay, so let's grant them that one. Well, then, they say that sensitive temperament still must meet with an invalidating environment, or a person isn't going to have the, quote, triggers and or trauma and or experience, however you want to define it, to actually end up being diagnosed with their trauma response known as BPD. So I would say yes, and it's all about infancy. Well, it starts actually in the womb. That's where the sensitive temperament is going to be developed or not, or a human being with a calmer mother and less hormones coursing through their body while they're developing might have a more resilient temperament, which, if you meet with an invalidating environment, hard to say what will happen there. But basically, it's what happens in utero, and then after you come into this world, it's what happens between mother and child, or main caregiver and child. So if mother has BPD, well, lots of people with BPD probably have got a lot of treatment and they're probably parenting really well. But lots of people with BPD don't get any treatment at all and they're not going to parent well at all. And so it's what happens in early childhood and the trauma there that really, and the abandonment trauma, the attachment trauma, the interrupted attachment that takes place, these are really the key core drivers of what ends up being so traumatizing to an infant on a biological level. Everything threatens survival. This is where the essential split takes place. This is where the triggers happen. It's biological level before it's emotional, before it's cognitive. So it has very much to do with what happens in utero and infancy and whether or not that child has a chance to go through the crucial early stages of childhood development in a reasonably healthy way or not at all. So that would be my response to that. So that's how. It doesn't run in families like some genetic thing. It's bad parenting, trauma to infant, trauma to early toddler. It just runs throughout families in that regard with invalidating environment. People don't have skills and tools to have children. Um, yeah, the narcissist image, A Wheels, projected out to the world or shown to the world. But boy, when you go home and the door closes, it's a whole other story. It also gaslights you because, and I went through this with both my parents. what they were really like at home and what they could seem like with company and what they seem like out in the community. Not so much my mother, but my father was like dark triads, I guess, sometimes can put on that charming verb charisma thing. Everybody thought he was just the greatest guy because they didn't really know him. And then when you see that, you're having two experiences, right? It's like cognitive dissonance on steroids. People think they're great, people see them in other roles, and you're like, but wait a minute, and it can really screw with your head too. And Wheel said they know about it, and they wait a minute, and everything. That if I said or did it, oh yeah, they know about it, yeah, and they would get threatened and punished. I bring this up because a family seeming close doesn't mean they are. That's very true. Especially seeming from the outside to be close. Very true. Kaz, I'm asking because I helped to reunite my son with his family. I don't talk about heredity. No, I wasn't implying you were. I was just that was separate. But would this early environment make him BPD? No direct abuse, but disinterested and superficial closeness. Hmm. I don't talk about, but would this early environment, well, your son could well be one of the 25%, where you were doing everything you could, no abuse took place, or no abuse you know of, because sometimes in the 25%, there will have been some other kind of abuse from a babysitter or somebody down the street, but not in the family of origin, so to speak, or not in the immediate family. But it sounds like your son might fit the 25% where there's perceived abandonment that creates just as much difficulty with that sensitive temperament coming together. They perceived they were abandoned because they had a higher needs threshold in infancy. And you might have done everything you could and everything that's reasonable for a mother to do, but you didn't meet his higher need threshold, which you couldn't have known about or anything. And in the 25%, this is where perceived abandonment becomes entrenched in them like actual abandonment. They get the same woundedness as 75% of those diagnosed or whatever with the trauma response known as BPD. So in your son's case, if he does fit in the 25%, then he still has a trauma response based on that biological in the first days, weeks, months of life. Biological mounting up a cry for a need that maybe you were satiating, you were meeting to the average need threshold of an infant, but maybe he had so much more of a sensitive temperament that everything he needed faster, he needed more. You couldn't know that. So that's a big possibility because there is that 25%, and moms have done the best job they can. Moms aren't cluster B, and it's not the same as the 75%. And Kaz said very distrustful to the outside world, very protective of um, one another, secretive. Oh, a foster son. Well, and I don't know what age he came to you, but the thing is, it could there's a higher or a more established correlation, but not for all people adopted or fostered, but they often have abandonment trauma and or other abuse or trauma before. I don't know how old he was when you fostered him, but um you don't know what happened before. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But so for a lot of people that are adopted or fostered out, and or whether they go back to family or get adopted or age out of that system, there's a lot of abandonment trauma there and a lot of interrupted attachment. Andrew, hey there. G'day. Great info as usual. Thanks. Oh, you're very welcome. And Wheels, yeah, I know. Well, people from the outside always think, yeah, I had the same thing. People saying, oh, your family's so great, what's your problem? No. That's just, they saw them out, like neighbors or the relatives that would drink with them, because my parents were also alcoholics on top of everything else. And like, they didn't have to be in my scapegoat role when the doors closed and everything else stopped, and you know they didn't know what to do with themselves, so they had to like, you know, dump it all on me, etc. So yeah, it's that's where we have to really, you know, reals. You have to validate and keep reassuring and validating yourself that you know it's really real, right? With your mother, etc. And other people don't, and so they don't mean any harm, but they don't know who these people really are. And then so many narcissists, you know, with the verb charm stuff going on and the charisma. Yeah, people like them because they're not close enough. They don't, you know, they don't go through. They don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Oh, Kazi was a teenager. Well, he 13. Yeah, he likely had some experiences. I don't know what, but at least abandonment trauma and interrupted attachment. And if not just feeling abandoned by the fact you needed to be fostered, right? Whatever was going on there. So, um, definitely, you know, things that you couldn't have known about and that you didn't cause, right? But that you also couldn't change. Well, you know, Wheels, what can I say? It's like, I'm sorry you're going through that still, but I think you just really need to detach from that, right? And when you hear it, you need to just basically do your best to not really, don't take it in, don't take it seriously. Just leave it with them, or leave it with her and her delusions, you know? So, but yeah, people can't, no matter how much they want to, rescue, fix, enable, or change anybody with BPD. And people with BPD are struggling from perceived or actual abandonment, interrupted attachment, other childhood trauma in 75% of cases. And unless and until they seek therapy, not a whole lot about that's going to change because they're in repetition compulsions. Schema therapy is effective for BPD, but the schemas that are built up from that childhood experience in a humanistic context aren't going to go anywhere without professional help. And just he said, my ex used to ball up in fetal position crying hard during a really silly argument with me. Bros. Silent treatment all night. I'd never seen anything like it. Well, and you know, it just, your ex has had some really core primal pain and obviously would get triggered back into that place very easily, it sounds like. And that can be really hard to see in someone because they're in a world of hurt, but they're not going to let you in. You know, they're going to push you away because it wasn't safe. You know, how they got hurt that way in the first place. There was nothing safe about that and no one to trust. My comment for you, I can add to what Kaz said with the problem. My BPD guy has kids, but the ex won't let him see BPD dad anymore, adding another trauma to him. Question mark. Potentially, maybe, but it depends why that decision was made. If it was made to punish him or something, then that's abhorrent. But perhaps it's really, unfortunately, right now, in the children's best interest. I don't know because I don't know the situation. And a person taking care of kids with a BPDX would have to, if they have the autonomy to or the legal right to, would have to maybe protect children from a BPD parent at some point. Hard to say. Well, yeah, she was 40 when she did that. You said, well, she'll be doing that when she's 40, 45, 50, 60, 70. She doesn't get treatment. It's not going to change, sadly enough. I'll remember, Wills, to focus on you, your autonomy, and what you're doing more than on them. Um, oh, couple of 133s. That's interesting. She's BPD, I'm codependent. Hard breakup. She's my ex fiance, but she's still in my circle of friends. She's been contacting one that's my best friend. Should I worry about that? Well, if she's your ex and she's in your circle of friends, I think you have to focus on the ex part, right? But if it's a really close friend of yours and she's maybe gonna want to get involved there, it's not very respectful. But when you say should you worry about it, um, I would say why would you worry about it if you're an ex? Unless it's a really close friend who you might feel betrayed by should they go there. But otherwise, if she's an ex and it's over, and then wouldn't she be free to kind of do whatever she wants with somebody like that? Andrew, even with DBT therapy, they still get triggered and dissociate. No amount of kindness, patience, or support seems to make a difference. No contact now for 4 weeks. Good for you, Andrew, and please keep that up for yourself. And well, DBT therapy, some people learn the skills better than others. Some people can manage the symptoms better, but it's not a recovery modality. So it's a great start. But some people don't really engage it. Some people don't really learn it all. Some people won't do the work to practice the skills. So in that case, there can be a tremendous amount that doesn't change. And even under the best of circumstances, some things may change, but there's still more therapy than that required, actually. So it's a good thing that you're taking care of yourself. So, anyways, I gotta get going. This has gone long. I just want to be aware of the time for people watching back. And again, thank you to everybody out there who subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do and hit the notification bell. Give us a like if you so inclined. And yeah, this channel right now, without the month being at end yet for about another week, record number of views for this channel anyway, 51,000 and counting in less than 30 days. So that's exciting. And I hope that people are finding the videos helpful. So everybody take care. With that, I got to run or walk quickly away, whatever the case may be. So everybody take care and look forward